siren. Hello everyone and welcome back to her Creative Freedom podcast. Today we are hearing all the noises in the background, so we have a siren and whatever else comes our way because we are parked at a dog park right now. We are also recording this on video, so if you are following my YouTube channel, the links will be in the description of this vlog. What are we doing? A podcast episode, and that's where you can find the link to the video. I'm very excited to welcome Steve to the Maritimes. Everyone, welcome Steve to the Maritimes. But today we are going to dive and jump right into the most common comment to me, and I'm sure to you as well, which was, are you in a relationship? You must not be in a relationship. How are you in a relationship? Being that we are not actually physically together. If you can hear that siren, please ignore. Also, we have a 10-week-old puppy behind Steve. If we hear any noises, crying, that's that. And Tucker is in the front. He might scurry around as well. But yeah, we wanted to do a podcast basically talking about our experience being together for a year, full-time living together, and then I went on the road and we've been separate for 4 months. And that can't transition. So when people are first meeting me and asking questions about me living in a van, I have had comments of like, you must not be in a relationship, assuming that I'm not, and I very much am, and they are surprised to hear that I am. And which then the next question usually is, you know, how is that going? And I know even from my parents, they question how we are doing. And I don't even know if they believe me when I say we're thriving. But so we wanted to talk about our experience of what it's been like before I went on the road, the first half of me being on the road, and kind of where we are now, and the happy ending that's not really an ending, you know what I mean? But we'll get to later. I'm very excited. So Steve, welcome.
Thank you. So I'm curious because you got me all pumped up here. What do you say when people ask you about your relationship when we're apart and you're on the road?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll get there. I kind of want to start at the beginning, of what it was like when we were living together before I went on the road, and what we kind of going back to like the unknown, like we didn't know how it was going to be. So do you remember like those initial feelings? I feel like it's been forever, but
it was probably our third or fourth actual date when we started seeing each other, when we sat in that Tim Hortons parking lot, and you're like, just so you know, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it was obviously a lot to take in. There was a few moments during that conversation where I tried to like imagine what that reality would look like, but truthfully, we were so young and so new that I didn't know.
We were so young.
Well, like so young within our relationship, within our partnership. We were so new as a partnership that I just didn't even know what that looked like. I didn't know what Vanlife was. Listening to Cindy's podcast was the start of trying to understand what life on the road and van life is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's kind of like one of those situations where you don't know what it's going to be like until you're doing it. Personally for me, and I think you can only really speak for you, I'm already so independent that I was okay going on the road knowing that we were going to be in a relationship because I'm very independent and I got to like do my thing, and I knew you were going to do your thing. But I will be totally authentic and vulnerable when I say that there was a period really close to when I was going to be leaving where like we were going through a rough patch. Trust was an issue at that point in our relationship, and therefore we were kind of navigating like what it was going to be like going on the road with trust a little fragile in that moment of our relationship, which was something that we knew that we would have to build up if we wanted to continue. In which then I was like, I'm going to go on the road and this relationship is either going to continue or it's not, but I'm just going to go on the road and do me. And if I feel like this is a relationship worth pursuing, then we will continue to do that. So as much as like our relationship was thriving before, it did hit a rough period where talk was happening around whether or not we should even be together. Not only because of trust, but also because I was going on the road and we didn't know what that was going to be like. So it was kind of like, my perspective was like, I don't know if I can pursue this relationship. I'm just going to go on the road and do my thing and feel it out, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And then I think together there was also conversation around like, should we just not be together? Me go do my thing, you do your thing, and then if we're meant to be, we'll just get back together, kind of thing. So that was worth mentioning, because that was like a huge part at the beginning where I was like stubborn independent Cass of like, I'm just gonna go on the road. But as closer and closer to me actually leaving, we talked so much around, you know, the hardships that we were going through as a couple, and I think that it really actually did make us stronger in the end, just before I left. And what the situation that we were going through had to happen before I was about to leave, and it was a blessing that it happened.
So part of me just wants to dive a little deeper into what we were actually struggling with. So addictions are something that is very, very extremely common and seldomly talked about. And for probably about 5 or 6 years within my life, I struggled with solo drinking, just like isolation drinking. And when I first entered into this partnership, that was something that I was trying to move past from as a past wound within my life, but still hadn't fully conquered, and tried to keep hidden within our relationship. And when it came out, obviously 1 month before you were to hit the road, I think trust was definitely shaken. And I think that's where the large part of the conversation around do we stay together, do we not stay together, came from. But I think we did work through that. We are huge advocates for talk therapy, so I started seeing a psychologist and have worked through it and have been sober for over 150 days.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so let's just throw it out there.
I mean, I think it was really one of those situations where like you were struggling with this quote addiction, and you were trying to like handle it yourself but also keep it from me at the same time. And then obviously I found out, because everything that's meant to come to the surface will, like, eventually we were all going to find out, and this was going to come to light, I guess I should say. But when it did, of course, because of my own traumas and my own past wounds of you trying to just like in a healthy way really keep it to yourself because you thought you could handle it, it knocked my wound and my traumas around trust of just not being honest and open with me, in which then I was like, well, if I can't trust you, like I felt like I couldn't trust him going on the road because I was going to be so far away, which I think majority of people, if they didn't communicate it the way we have, I think that's how it would just end up for a lot of people. But it really did come out on the surface about a month before I was leaving, so it was a huge knock to me and my past traumas and wounds. But yeah, you started talking to a psychologist, and it's been absolutely amazing ever since. And now we just live like a dry life, or whatever you call it. But it really did come to tons of communication about everything, like everything and anything that came up for me, even my own assumptions and stories of like, it could be a random Tuesday and I'm in Quebec and I could be like, I'm just having a feeling that like I had a dream last night that you were drinking and like something came up, and we just literally just talked about everything so that you can work through it. And that's how the trust and the communication is gained. So yeah, that was like, yeah, it happened right before we left, but I think it was meant to, for us to grow as a couple. And then really leading up to like the weeks before I was actually going on the road, I feel like, at least for me anyways, like my feelings for you like really amplified knowing that I was going to be going away and this was going to be a huge transition in our relationship. Again, I was still going, like I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if I was going to leave and like feel something different of like, I don't know if I want to be in a relationship. But I just knew leaving that like I want to be in a relationship with you, and I was really proud of how much we grew in that month because of what happened. Yeah, so
for me, I knew that our relationship was on the line at that point, and to completely cut out drinking from my life, pretty much cold turkey, it was a statement of how much I wanted everything to work. So your fears of you leaving was, you know, what happens if, you know, you digress or, you know, you kind of relapse, and I come home and you're a different person. I was so dead set on just white knuckling it through any sort of challenges I faced to make sure that our relationship succeeded, and it's been very successful. That method may not be for everybody, but just white knuckling through it and getting to the other side. Once I was separated by, you know, a month or two of not drinking, it became very easy to maintain.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I would say you white knuckled it, because you did have your psychologist too, right? Like that did help. And I mean, a lot of people, I was really proud of that, because a lot of people sometimes look at like counselors, psychologists, all that, I don't know, like the demonized, I guess.
Yep.
But it's literally the best thing that you can do for yourself. So
it was life changing.
Yeah, it was so good for you and for me, because I see one as well. But so yeah, that was like the beginning of just before I got on the road. And then like I said, the week of me actually leaving, I felt even more connected to you, knowing that I was going to do this. Then I was on the road, and it was coming from two different perspectives, because for me, I'm very independent. I was like, I know that I'm spending my life with you, and I know that we're together, and I'm a Taurus, so like once like my head is set, I'm just like set. So I knew that I loved him, and I knew I was with him, and I was going to be with him, and I'm doing my thing, he's doing his thing, and he's my partner, and that's all I needed to know. I have the experience of a very long-term relationship in my past, and he had the experience of long-distance relationship in his past. And I didn't know, I almost felt a little naive of like what a long-distance relationship can do to a couple without communication and stuff like that. Where, I mean, you can talk about it, but you have trauma from a distanced relationship.
Yeah, I had a failed long distance relationship, and I think that's where I came from, is trying to learn what didn't I do right the first time. In a past relationship, she had gone to a different continent for what was supposed to be a year and a half. And after 6 months, what I started to notice was a shift. Home became that new city that she was living in. Her bed was there, her friends were there, her work was there. And the foreign country became Canada. So it was only natural that she created new relationships within her life, friends and otherwise, and we definitely drifted apart, and she fell in love with somebody else. So going into this journey that we've been on, it was a lot of, okay, how do we keep the relationship strong? How do we keep our communication strong? How do we make it fun and spontaneous, even though we're in different provinces or different time zones? So definitely there was some trauma there and some wounds there of just a fear of losing you based on, okay, it's happened before, and could it happen again?
That's what, like, that's kind of what I was trying to get at, was that we were both going into it like positive, and we knew that our relationship was going to be okay, but at the other side, I was like naive to what it was really going to be like, and you were a little bit fearful of like experiencing what you did in your past. So again, like that just came down to so much communication. Like it really did. We went through this like period of like, I'm just doing my thing, and I was committed to you, but and I was doing something different than what we do at home, where you were, you know, working and doing, like, you were in a familiar area and I wasn't, so my brain was like all over the place sometimes, being on the road and traveling. So there was times where you would have to come to me and communicate that you were feeling something of fear, or that period where you like were spiraling kind of thing because of it. And it's almost like we had to go through a spiraling, and we can talk about it, but a spiraling period to come up to the other side and like make understanding of why we felt the way we did.
Of course. The first challenge I think I felt was that I had no stories to share sometimes. I was getting up, I was going to the gym, I was going to work, I was coming home, and when we talked every night, you'd have all these big stories to share and all your adventures, and I just felt like, I don't know, a little bit lackluster, because I would just tell you about my day with clients, which didn't feel like we were on the same energy field, like the same vibe. But I quickly realized that this journey that you're on, you're going to have those experiences where, you know, I'm at home and my stories might just be a little different than yours.
Yeah, and I think it's just like the role in our relationship. Like, I am traveling the country in my van in my home, but it's also like my own journey of self-discovery, and that's what really I am on. Whereas like you are building our foundation back at home. So we play both are playing such an important role individually in our own lives, but also a huge role in our relationship. So it wasn't at any means like at the beginning sunshine and rainbows and we just worked and thrived. I would say that we did really struggle at the beginning, because at this point we didn't actually know when we were going to see each other again, unless I was going back home because of you know, the pandemic and traveling, we weren't able to travel on an airplane, train, bus, whatever. We weren't able to, and we didn't know when the world was going to open up to all humans to be able to do that. So at the beginning of our relationship, I think deep down we both knew that we were going to be together and we were going to be together forever. But we did have a lot of weekly check-ins where I was naive to, do I want to be in a relationship while I'm on the road? It was talked about that maybe we should just break up and then get back together when I'm done living on the road, because I didn't know if I could navigate both, and I didn't know if the distance, if like, sometimes I would doubt myself, I should say, which all comes down to my own confidence, but I feel like sometimes I would doubt myself of like, can I do this, or like, do I want to do this? And I was starting to kind of spiral internally because of my own insecurities and because of my own confidence, with which was directly about me and actually had nothing to do with him. But I was starting to doubt myself, and that's why it's so important to do the work of self-confidence, so that you just know that, you know, your person is your person, and that you know what you're doing, you know who you are, and you know what you believe. But I would say when we didn't know when we were going to see each other, we did really spiral and talk about like whether or not we wanted to do this. I was very naive. I was very doubtful in myself and what I was doing, what I wanted. I think that was the biggest thing. I doubted what I wanted. I didn't know if I wanted to be in a relationship while I was on the road. But then even the thought of like us breaking up didn't feel right either. And I knew that it was about me and had nothing to do with him. So that's where I had to just like turn to my own healing and my own self-discovery and my work. And that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. I think the turning point for me was working with the psychologist and just talking about the emotions that were coming up for me. And a lot of it is, if you're so independent and if you're choosing to go across the country, which I support, I can't at any point resent that independence that you have. I need to lean into it and actually love it. So it was shifting the perspective to make sure that I found positive within what could cause negatives over time. And once that shift of perspective of like, oh, like I do love, like that's what I love about you. I love your independence. The fact that when I describe you to other people, you're a strong, independent woman that went across the country in a van. Like that's one of my proudest descriptors about you. So once I fully leaned into that, that's where I felt the shift for me. The shift didn't happen when the world opened up and we could see each other again, because we bounced out of our spiral.
Yeah, we did.
A week or two before flights opened up. And then obviously I almost felt like it was universal timing. It was like God's like, okay, you guys have learned your lesson.
Yeah, it totally was, which was so magical. Like, but that's a really good point, because we did kind of accept that we were not going to see each other for over a year, like next summer. Yeah. Because nothing was open.
The plan was originally to see each other every 4 months.
Yeah.
And because of flights not being a thing for us, now it became, you didn't know when you were coming back and I didn't know when I would see you again.
Yeah, and we went through this like angry period of like, fuck the world.
Yeah.
And then we did, like, I think through with you, with your psychology, and with me, I don't know, I just like, I felt our communication, for me, how we communicated about everything, and just the internal knowing of like, you are the person that I want to spend my life with. We really did come to like this peace and this calm of acceptance that we might not see each other until next summer, but it's okay. And I also want to mention, when the flights opened, it just brought this like sense of like relief, because the option was now there.
Yeah.
Which helped so much. And then obviously you're obviously here, so you booked your flight, and it was super exciting. But I always go back to the comment or the conversation you had with one of your clients about how
it was a married couple. They'd been married for 50 years. And you could tell they were a bit free-spirited people, but they were just a very similar vibe as to us. So I started chatting with them, and I asked them what the secret was to be married for 50 years and just be thriving. And she goes down to South America every year. I think she was like very passionate about art, and there's a couple artists she follows in South America, and she just goes and buys art. And he has a motorcycle, and he drives across Canada once a year. And they pursue their own passions, but then they come together. And there was that moment for us of like, I'm here in Edmonton working on a foundation for our future and making sure that money is never a problem for us. And you're on the other side of the country pursuing your passions as well. And together we come together, and we're just stronger that way.
Yeah, and I think that it was just like a really beautiful reminder and story of like where the generation is kind of now, but also the older generation doesn't quite understand it a little bit either. We don't live a normal
life
at all, period.
Two vegans that live on the other side of the country.
Our beliefs are not like everyone else's. What I loved about it was that their point was, and I think now it's starting to be talked about, is in order to thrive really is you have to allow each other to do their own independent things, because that will, as a couple, grow you deeply. He is back at home working on our foundation and for our future and our goals and dreams of our house and the farm and the animals and all the things we talk about, and I'm on mine, reliving a dream of mine for a long time, but also on this very self-discovery journey, which I think is so incredibly important for me because it's going to benefit us hugely. But also when we were together at home, living together, we always communicated about everything, but when you're far apart, it's just, you have to. And communication, I mean, I think everyone can agree that communication is a lot of times the problem in the relationship, and you have to really talk about everything, even if it's made up in your head. Talk about every emotion and feeling that comes up. And I think a lot of people assume that you can't talk about something that's not real, but if it's coming up, it's an emotion, it's an feeling for you, absolutely talk about it. So I think what helped us with trust is when I was starting to go down a dark hole, I would bring it up and we literally talk about everything. And we just save space for each other to do that, and it really will help you or with your partner and grow that relationship. I mean, we are not relationship gurus by any means. We're just like everyone else trying to figure it out, but we have gone through the hard shit and learned from it also.
And we're still going through the hard shit. Just yesterday we had an amazing conversation for 2 hours on a drive about both of our traumas, and I think we've really brought a better understanding to when there's a lot of heightened energy in the day between us. I will say it's usually because I'm struggling with myself, which then it's projected onto him and has nothing to do with him or our relationship. I'm just struggling internally with myself, which I would say doesn't happen all the time, but a majority of the time I would say it is, because I am truly on this my own journey of we all live in our own minds, and if I feel your energy is off, or if I feel there's some annoyance or hesitation, I feel it's me that's annoying you. So we just essentially spiral. But yesterday, speaking about this and going kind of deeper into what was an uncomfortable conversation at times for both of us, was some clarity around, there's that aha moment. And that whole conversation just added another layer of depth to our relationship. Yeah,
and I think it also takes, it's up to me to say you're not annoying me, or I'm not shade because of you. It's because I'm actually feeling this. And sometimes I won't even know that I'm feeling a certain way about myself until we get into it. And then you have to ask that why. Why is this coming up, or why are you feeling that way? And it's also up to the person that if I know I am struggling that day, talk about it, so that he knows that if you're feeling off, or if you feel something from me, it's because I'm actually, this is what's going through my head, or this is how I feel today. And it's really important, because I actually have been in the past relationship where if you don't feel comfortable bringing up the most craziest story that you have just built up into your brain to your partner, then that relationship may not be for you. Because you have to have that safe space with your partner. And so I think that, so going back to your question at the beginning, what do I say when people ask? And it's so funny, because I just remember one particular, actually, before going on the road, when I hit Ontario and I was visiting my family, everyone thought that Steve was with me. I don't know who didn't.
Hiding in the back of the van?
Yeah, I don't know who didn't think that it was with me. Everyone thought that Steve was with me, so when, to their surprise, he wasn't, they would ask me how we're doing, and how are we doing this, and one conversation I had was, this woman didn't even know anything about me. She just knew that I was on the road, and I was telling her my story and what I'm doing and when I'm going to be going back home, I think, and all this stuff. Her comment was, she was like so sarcastic about it, and she was like, you can't be with someone. And I was like, oh no, I am. Like, I have a partner. And she was just like so mind blown that I was doing this and I had a partner, and like, how was that working? Another one I will say is from my close family, my parents. Their generation's a lot different, so I don't think they believe me when I say that like we're doing really well sometimes, but it's just because that's totally not their generation of being apart and still being good. But that's where it comes down to the communication. So I really do just tell people that we are in a relationship. We talk about everything. I know we've mentioned this before, but we have our Sunday check-ins, which we do every single week. We've never missed a week, I don't think. I mean, we might have to move
sometimes they're shorter. Be like, hey, you're good, I'm good, okay,
yeah,
great.
like sometimes
but
just
sometimes
good.
they're 2-hour conversations.
Yeah, exactly. So we really do leave space to talk about everything and anything, and I think that is the core of why we are doing so well. And also, I mean, when you just know that you've met your person. So like I said, I just knew that he is my soulmate, and look no further. And I think I can say that for the both of us. And I think if people wanted to know like how we are doing so well, like it really just does come down to communication about everything.
And I know we kind of maybe shocked some of the audiences when, for the first time, I think on a podcast, we brought up that I struggled with an addiction. But you have a past addiction that you sometimes still struggle with and are working through. I have trauma and childhood trauma and a past addiction that, you know, I'm working through. And I think more often than not, people have their own struggles.
Totally.
And it's when you're in a partnership, it's not trying to, and this is the lesson that I learned, not trying to hide that part of yourself. The famous quote, I think, that I told you is I was very proud of 98% of who I was, but there was that 2% of myself that I was working through and trying to fix. But when we shined a light on that ugly 2%, and we worked through it together, I think that's really when our relationship started to blossom and deepen to a different level. Yeah, it helps when you when you shine some light onto your darkness with somebody else. It is so incredibly vulnerable, but it will help you grow as a partnership and as a person. All of a sudden this like weight is taken off your body, and you just feel so much better that you can openly talk to the person that you're going to spend your life with, or that you are with at the time. And really how they react could tell you a lot about where you go from here. If they're not allowing you to be seen and to be heard and know that you are safe, at least for a female's perspective, like that's really alarming. But you have to open that space for each other. Absolutely. If there's anyone listening who is struggling with their own issues and don't know where to turn, usually there's so many better helps out there. There's so many like free or less expensive ways to speak with somebody, and just encourage everybody to to shine a light on that piece.
Therapy is huge. I mean, journaling, anything that meditation, anything that you can like release it from you and get it out there helps so much. After he booked his flight to come out here, I do want to say it heightened a lot emotionally for me, knowing that like, oh my gosh, we're actually gonna be able to get to see each other. And you know, for 4 months from now we will see each other again. I really admire the couples that have been together for many years, or I really just admire our relationship, that we have found peace in being separated. I'm doing my thing and you're doing your thing, but we understand that it's so much for the betterment of us as a couple, and that we open that free space for each other to talk about whatever comes up.
What, I guess going back to my family, because you had mentioned how your family feels about this. My family still thinks sometimes that this is just a trip and you're going to come home and then we're going to live happily ever after. You and I know the truth. The van is going to be in our life forever. And some of the trips might be of different lengths, but you're going to be home for 3-4 months next summer, and then you're going to go again. And that is the relationship that we're living into, and it's beautiful.
I think that's a good point too to mention, is that there, for me anyways, because I'm such a family, well, we're both very family oriented, but like my parents are my best friends. So when they were kind of doubting and questioning like what the heck is going on, and like really trying to understand why I'm not coming home anytime soon to see you or live with you and like be with you, it was I'd have to go to him and be like, hey, like I'm spiraling. Is there something I don't know? Like, why do I feel like I have to come back to you? I'm not done doing what I need to do. And so many times you would have to remind me, like, as long as we know our relationship and we're on the same page, like, the external's opinions,
society doesn't understand.
yeah, it doesn't understand, but the external doesn't matter. What matters is what we believe and our values, and like what we believe, and like, as long as we're on the same page. And I had to really remind myself of that, because I sometimes let the external, like, get into my brain and be like, hey, what, am I naive? Am I missing something here? Like, what? And I think our families are at a place where, like, they don't fully understand. They don't need to understand, but they see how happy I am. They see how happy you are. And yeah, we're great.
Yeah. There was a comment on one of your Instagram videos or pictures that happiness looks great on you. And I think the world may not understand our relationship, but they see how happy we are. And they just get it.
Yeah, and I just also feel like we're almost living proof to ourselves that we're thriving. You know, we talk about the hard stuff, and
it was never because there was somebody else better out there. It was just, does this make sense to be in a committed relationship when we're apart and we're focusing on different things? It was never, is this relationship for me? You're the right person. It was just, was it the right time?
Yeah, and I also think, like, and something I will say that, I mean, yesterday I spiraled about this, so it comes up still, is like, I am on this journey of self-discovery, and honestly just trying to learn a lot about myself and be so incredibly loving and accepting of who I am right now as a person, and, like, free myself from a lot of layers that don't belong with me anymore. I didn't know how to balance that and put my energy into me, and also put my energy into being in a partnership with somebody else. Because if I go down, like I did yesterday, go down this hole, it seemed like a lot. It seemed like I couldn't put my energy in two different places. But what I will say is that you can, as long as you're with the right person that gives you the space and gives you the grace that you need to also focus on yourself, I think the best thing you could do is to just focus on yourself, because it will benefit the relationship and the partnership as one. Do never neglect yourself to just be with someone else, because it's only going to affect both of you, but it really will just cause more for you to have to work through as an individual. So I feel like for the first time ever, I am able to work on myself and put energy into loving me and my confidence and everything that I'm doing on the road and in this relationship, because you give me that space to do so. And I think too that if we weren't meant to be together, like, we would have already known that. And truly, when you know, you know. And we are both very spiritual, but we both believe in God, and there are so many times where we're like, God has our back, like, God has our back. And that does bring so much peace to me, knowing that that we're always going to be taken care of, for sure. Yeah, and now that brings us to where we are now, which is engaged.
Have you been hiding the ring the whole time?
No, I'm just talking, but maybe nobody noticed. But we are engaged, and before I left, by the time this goes up, the proposal vlog will probably already be on my channel, hopefully. So go check it out. It will be in the description of this episode. But before I left on the road, we did go look at engagement rings. It was an experience that I had never done, but it was cool to do together. I don't think back in the day you went engagement ring shopping. I don't really know.
I think that's new age.
But I think it's new age, and it was super fun. And, like, yes, did I have an idea of what the ring would look like? Yes, but it was so fun, and it was like, it just amplified, like, holy crap, like, I'm with my person, and, like, we're going to get engaged. So that was really cool. And then knowing that he was coming out here, like, all the stories in my brain, like, I hope he does it in Nova Scotia. I don't know if he's gonna do Nova Scotia. If he did, that would be so crazy and wild and, like, such a dream, because the Maritimes has such a special place in my heart. So if he did, but in the end, he came, he did it. I knew about it because I formulated this whole story in my head.
You're a hard girl to surprise.
Just happened to be correct. But we are engaged, and I'm so excited, and it's just really cool. Like, we're on a whole new level chapter of our relationship now, where we're talking about weddings and futuristic things for each other. And I will say, because it did happen yesterday, like, I still struggle with, I don't know, like, Actually, I don't know if I still, well, I obviously do because it came up yesterday, but like being in a relationship while on the road and figuring myself out, like I really did spiral yesterday. And at some points, I will mention, and I know we've talked about how we hate saying this, but at times it does feel like it would just be easier if I was single and I was alone, because then I don't have to feel like an inconvenience or like I'm putting my stuff onto you or this relationship. But the beautiful thing about a relationship is that your partner is going to pull the ugliness out of you so that you can bring awareness to it, so that you can change it or work on it.
And I accept you for you and your stuff, and I love you for everything you are and everything you're not, and I'm here from tip to tip on the journey.
Yeah.
You're not an inconvenience, and you, like, I am your biggest fan, so I want to see you overcome it.
Yeah, and I think that the beautiful thing about any relationship when you find your person is that, I mean, hopefully, and I know you have, like you think about all that before you put a ring on someone's finger. It is a big commitment, and like it's a big question for a bigger commitment, but you have to ask yourself those questions, that you are committing yourself to the good, bad, and ugly. And I think what I have to really come to an understanding more so about is that a relationship is going to get ugly and a relationship is going to be beautiful. And I'm really proud of where we are and how far we've come being separated for the 4 months that we have been, which is not a long time. Couples do it so much longer, but this is my first experience being in a successful distanced relationship and now engaged. I'm just like really proud of us. But yeah, you are really committing to the good, bad, and ugly.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah.
And you just have conversations when you're doing long distance that you may not have had living together for years.
Yeah.
So it's almost like our relationships, and fast forward, that we're encountering those layers faster than most people do.
Yeah, and I think the comments from the external, also the questions even from the external helped also, because they got me thinking and me feeling even more like proud that we do communicate about everything, and or most things anyways, I would say pretty much everything. And it gets your brain thinking that maybe you wouldn't have thought about or even questioned or talk about, like you said, if we were living together.
100%.
So yeah, I mean, it's been quite the journey, it's been quite the experience, but I would say like communication is absolutely everything. There is no stupid or wrong thought, story, comment that you create in your brain that you should not be able to talk about to your partner.
Yeah.
It's easy for you to make an assumption in your head and then try to talk yourself out of it, like, oh, that's not true, because generally it's going to stay in you. It's going to stay in your head. Like, you have to talk about that kind of stuff.
Common theme, communication.
Yeah, common theme, communication. And now we're engaged and we're entering a whole other new experience of our relationship we're both very excited about. And I think that we'll continue to do our own thing in this relationship and obviously do things together, but
in our next podcast together in December, I'm sure there's gonna be more layers.
We're doing another one?
Of course.
Okay.
Every 4 months.
Every 4 months we'll do another one.
Because we did the first one, I guess, last year, but
yeah, but that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
So the next time we're gonna see each other will be at Christmas in Ontario, and then after that, the next time we see each other will be in Christmas, in the summer.
Yeah, May when you get home.
Yeah. And then who knows what's going to happen after that.
100%.
It just is always changing. So I hope that we were some useful information to whoever is listening to this, but it definitely, like, the most common question I was asked, or the comments that were coming to me from my family and friends was, you know, are you in a relationship and how is it working? And when we say we're thriving, like, what does that mean? And I more so wanted to share that we weren't always thriving. And there was a point where we may or may not have broken up. But I've been listening to a lot of podcasts in, like, spiritual relationships, and that consciousness is that communication really is everything. And holding that space for each other.
And owning your shit first.
What do you mean?
Owning your shit. Like, being stronger as an individual to make the partnership better.
Yeah, and, like, just knowing that, like, there's no right or wrong. Like, don't prove to yourself that you are right, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Because this isn't a game. But yeah, did you have any final thoughts?
No final thoughts. I think we did a great job.
Yeah, I'm really proud of us. We finally recorded the podcast.
High five.
But I love the idea of doing another one, so we will definitely do one at Christmas time. But I hope you really enjoyed this, and if you have any questions, comments, leave them in the comments of this podcast or my YouTube video. And thank you for joining me at this dog park in Nova Scotia.
Hopefully the barking dogs and sirens weren't too much for everybody.
Yeah, and now we are going to go outfit shopping for our engagement shoot.
I love it.
Which will be very exciting. So we will see you in the next episode.